Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive, specially curated for our listeners over at Vintage Car Chronicles on Spotify. Today we're diving deep into the world of the Nissan 300ZX.
A true legend in the world of Japanese sports cars.
We've got a ton of great info to cover, articles, historical data. It's going to be a wild ride.
Each generation of the 300ZX really captures the essence of its time. It's a fascinating evolution to trace.
All right, so we're talking two main generations here, right? The Z31 and the Z32.
Exactly.
Where do we even begin with a story like this?
Well, how about we start with the Z31? It was born in the 80s, brought those sharp angles that were all the rage back then.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at a picture of it right now, and wow, those lines. And look, pop-up headlights. So 80s, but there's more to it than just looks, right?
Absolutely. The Z31 marked a pretty big shift for the Z car. This was the first time they moved away from the inline-six engine.
To a V6.
Yep, a V6. It was a big step towards a more compact, efficient design philosophy.
Interesting. Now, this wasn't just any V6, was it? This was a pretty significant engine for Nissan, if I remember correctly.
Oh, absolutely. It was actually Japan's first mass-produced V6 engine, a real testament to their engineering capabilities.
Oh.
And they offered a whole range of configurations for the Z31, naturally aspirated, turbocharged, you name it, from 2.0 liters all the way up to 3.0.
They were really pushing the boundaries back then. Okay, so we've got the looks, we've got the power, but here's where things get really interesting for me. The tech in the Z31, I mean, for its time, this was cutting-edge stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Digital dashboards, voice warning systems. This was before smartphones and touchscreens were even a thing.
Right. Imagine that. And then there's the body sonic audio system.
Body sonic.
I know, right?
Tell me more about this. I've heard about it.
It used these special speakers that actually let you feel the bass through your seat.
Ooh, like a built-in massage chair.
It must have been mind-blowing back then.
I bet.
People probably thought they were in Back to the Future or something. Seriously. Speaking of being ahead of its time, the Z31's design, that was incredibly aerodynamic, right?
Oh, yeah. We're talking a drag coefficient of 0.30, super impressive even by today's standards.
Wow. So they really nailed those details, huh?
They did. And those later Z31 models, they even added side skirts, flared fenders. You know those cool 16-inch wheels on the turbo models? Even more aggressive.
So they were constantly refining it.
Yeah.
Amazing how it evolved throughout its production run. Like those later models, the updated bumpers, the integrated fog lamps, it looked really polished. But they didn't just focus on mass production. Did they have some pretty special editions of the Z31?
They did. They did. For their 50th anniversary, Nissan released this really special edition Z31, packed with luxury features. It came in a sleek two-tone color scheme, light pewter and thunder black.
Fancy.
Right. And it had everything. Digital dash, electronically adjustable shocks, those body sonic speakers we talked about, even embroidered leather seats.
Talk about a loaded car.
Right. The ultimate expression of the Z31. Wow. Sounds like they pulled out all the stops for that one. But then they had something for the speed demons, too.
Oh, yeah.
The Shiro Special.
Ah, the Shiro Special. This was for those who craved pure performance. Striking pearl white paint job, stripped down to the essentials, stiffer springs, heavy-duty anti-sway bars, Recaro seats. You know?
This thing was meant for the track.
Absolutely. And it had the power to back it up.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Let's see, looking at the specs here. 153 miles per hour top speed.
Yeah.
Imagine that in the late 80s. That's faster than some supercars today.
It was a groundbreaking car for its time.
No doubt.
Yeah.
The Shio Special was a statement. Nissan was serious about performance, and they weren't messing around. So we've got the Z31, a technological trailblazer. It had style, it had options, but the story doesn't end there, right?
Sure.
Enter the Z32. Now, this is where things get really interesting. This is the one that became an icon. So what was it about the Z32 that took things to the next level?
Well, with the Z32, Nissan was taking aim at the big leagues. Porsche, Corvette, the whole shebang. It was a complete redesign, aimed at a higher-end market. And the technology, oh man, they really went all out. Twin turbochargers, four-wheel steering.
A technological powerhouse.
Exactly. And the price tag reflected that ambition.
So this wasn't your everyday sports car anymore.
Not quite. It started around $30,000, which was a step up from the Z31 already. But by the end of its run, it was closer to $50,000.
Wow.
But people loved it. Motor Trend's Import Car of the Year in 1990, and it was on Car and Driver's 10 Best list for 7 years straight.
So clearly people were willing to pay for that level of performance and sophistication. Looking at the specs here. A twin-turbo V6 cranking out 300 horsepower. This thing was a beast. But it wasn't just about raw power, was it?
No. The Z32 was more than just a muscle car. It offered T-tops, there was a convertible option, luxurious interiors. It was a true grand tourer.
Like a Japanese Porsche 928. A car that could eat up miles on the Autobahn in style. Okay, hold on a second. Didn't they use a supercomputer to design this thing?
You're thinking of the Cray 2, one of the most powerful computers in the world at that time. Using it to design the Z32 meant that Nissan could simulate airflow, stress points, all with incredible precision.
Revolutionary.
Right. And the result was a car that was both beautiful and incredibly strong. That was really cutting edge stuff.
Amazing. Okay, I have to ask about the commercials. Those iconic Z32 commercials. The Super Bowl ad, directed by Ridley Scott, with the Z32 outrunning fighter jets. I mean, talk about making a statement.
Pure visual poetry. It captured the power and the sleekness of the Z32 in a way that words just couldn't. It's a shame they only aired it once.
Wait, what? Why only once?
Apparently, Nissan got cold feet. They were worried it would encourage street racing, the whole fighter jet thing, you know?
I guess I can see their point, but still, that's a
Oh,
shame. It's an amazing commercial. And then there was the G.I. Joe and Barbie one.
yeah.
Pure 90s nostalgia.
Oh, yeah. Mattel was not happy about that one.
Really?
Yeah, they sued Nissan, claiming trademark infringement. It ended up getting settled out of court, but all the controversy just made it even more famous. A pop culture phenomenon.
Those commercials definitely solidified the Z32's place in pop culture. But it wasn't all hype, was it? The Z32 proved itself on the racetrack, too, right?
Oh, absolutely. It was a force to be reckoned with in IMSA racing, incredible performance, legendary reliability. It even won the 24 Hours of Daytona in 1994 and finished first in its class at the 24 Hours of Le Mans that same year.
Wow, that's impressive. So we've got the Z31, a technological pioneer, and then the Z32, a true giant slayer. What does all this tell us about the legacy of the 300ZX?
The Nissan 300ZX wasn't just a car, it was a statement. It showed the world that Japan could build sports cars that were just as good as, if not better than, anything coming out of Europe or America.
It challenged the status quo.
It did, and it offered affordable performance, cutting-edge technology, and a style that turned heads. No wonder it became a legend.
And that legacy continues today, right? The new Nissan Z, it borrows heavily from the Z32's design. That sharp lines, the sloping roofline.
It's all there. The Z32's design was so timeless and so iconic that it continues to inspire designers to this day.
It makes you wonder what future generations of the Z will bring. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we need to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be looking at some unique perspectives on the 300ZX from French automotive publications.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Nissan 300ZX.
All right, so we're back, and I'm excited to hear what those French automotive publications had to say about the 300ZX.
Well, they were quite impressed, especially with the Z32.
Let's hear it.
One publication even went so far as to call its design futuristic, comparing it to something straight out of a manga.
A manga. That's cool. I can actually see that. The Z32 does have a certain sleekness to it.
They were also blown away by its features, saying it was impressive even by today's standards. Really high praise.
Wow, high praise indeed. What kind of features were they gushing over?
Everything. From the comfort of the seats to the quality of the materials used throughout the interior.
Sounds like they appreciated the attention to detail.
Oh, yeah, they definitely did. They specifically mentioned how well designed the controls were, how user-friendly the whole layout was.
And of course, they couldn't resist that twin-turbo V6, right?
Oh, absolutely not. They described its performance as smooth and exhilarating.
Hard to argue with that. Did they have any criticisms at all?
Well, they did mention the limited space in the back seats.
Ah, yes, the classic sports car dilemma. Style over practicality.
Right. They said the rear seats were better suited for kids or smaller adults. You know, much like the Porsche 928, which was one of its rivals back then.
That's fair. The Z32 is definitely more of a grand tour than a family hauler.
Exactly. But when it came to the handling, they loved it.
Tell me more.
They raved about its precision and agility, especially on those winding roads. They even called the four-wheel steering system a small revolution for the time.
That's so interesting to hear how the 300ZX was perceived in different parts of the world. It really adds another layer to our understanding.
It does. It wasn't just a hit in Japan and the US, it was making waves globally. Now, these French articles didn't just focus on the driving experience, they also got pretty technical.
Ooh, I love getting into the nitty-gritty. The engineering behind these machines is fascinating.
They break down the VG30 DETT engine in detail, highlighting its cool features, the twin turbochargers, the variable valve timing, the dual intercoolers.
It's incredible how much tech Nissan crammed into that engine? What kind of insights did they offer?
Well, they explain how using two turbochargers instead of one helped reduce that turbo lag so you get that instant power delivery.
Very clever. It's all about that balance of power and refinement.
Exactly. They also talk about the NVCS system, which is Nissan's variable valve timing technology.
That's the system that adjusts the valve timing based on speed and driving style, right?
Yep. It's like having two engines and one for fuel efficiency when you're cruising and one for raw power when you need it.
Wow, like they were anticipating the needs of drivers decades ago.
Right. Pretty impressive. And of course, the French reviewers couldn't resist diving into the suspension and handling of the 300ZX.
The heart of the driving experience.
Right. They described the multi-link suspension system in detail, pointing out the use of lightweight aluminum components and its sophisticated design.
All thanks to those supercomputer simulations. It's mind-blowing.
I know, and they were very impressed with the Super HICAS four-wheel steering system as well.
Yeah, that was a game changer back then. What were their thoughts?
They explained how it worked and highlighted all the benefits, like improved stability at high speeds and increased maneuverability in tight corners.
It really made a difference in how the car handled.
For sure, and they didn't skimp on the details when it came to the braking system either.
Brakes are just as important as the engine, especially in a car like this.
Absolutely. They were impressed by the four-piston calipers up front, two-piston in the rear, which was pretty advanced for its time. They noted that the Z32 had ventilated discs all around, which helped prevent brake fade.
So it sounds like the 300ZX wasn't just a looker. It had the performance chops to back it up.
Exactly. These French reviews really show us that it was a car firing on all cylinders.
So what's the big takeaway from all these French perspectives?
I think it confirms what we've been discussing. The 300ZX was a truly special car that impressed on multiple levels: captivating design, advanced tech, and exhilarating performance.
It wasn't just a Japanese phenomenon, it was winning hearts globally.
Exactly. It's fascinating to see how it was received outside of its main markets.
It's a reminder that great design and engineering can transcend borders.
You got it. Now, speaking of transcending, I think it's important to touch on the cultural significance of the 300ZX, particularly the Z32.
Absolutely. This wasn't just a car. It was a symbol, especially for that generation.
It was the epitome of the 1990s. Technological innovation, the economic boom, and that renewed interest in performance and style. The Z32 just captured it all.
It was a dream car, a symbol of success.
Right. And it was aspirational but still attainable, which made it even more appealing.
And it was everywhere in pop culture.
Yeah.
Movies, TV shows, video games.
Oh, yeah. It was a star in its own right. Just added that cool factor to any scene it was in.
A head-turner.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to its design that still looks good today.
No doubt. The 300ZX is a true icon. Now, while we've focused mainly on the Z32, let's not forget the Z31. It might not have the same level of fame, but it laid the groundwork.
It was the pioneer, the trailblazer.
Exactly. The Z31 introduced the V6 engine to the Z car family and brought a fresh, modern design that was way ahead of its time.
And it was a huge success for Nissan.
It was their best-selling Z car at that point, proving there was a market for a stylish, affordable Japanese sports car.
So the Z32 might be the rock star.
Yeah.
But the Z31 was the opening act that got the crowd going.
It definitely laid the foundation for the Z car's success in the 90s and beyond. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier: the 300ZX's impact on the aftermarket scene.
Oh yes, the tuners and the modders. What made the 300ZX such a perfect platform for customization?
Well, the Z32 especially, it was a tuner's dream. That twin-turbo V6 just had so much potential, it was practically begging to be modified.
And the tuners were happy to oblige.
They were all over it. Upgraded turbochargers, intercoolers, exhaust systems, you name it. They squeezed every bit of horsepower they could out of those engines.
I bet. And of course, they didn't just stop at the engine.
Nope. They upgraded the suspension, brakes, everything to handle all that extra power.
It's amazing how the 300ZX evolved from this cool sports car to this blank canvas for automotive creativity.
It really did. It inspired a whole subculture of enthusiasts who wanted to push the limits of what it could do.
That's what I love about car culture. It's all about passion, pushing boundaries.
For sure. And that legacy continues today.
You can still find modified 300ZXs out there.
Oh yeah, still tearing up the streets and racetracks. The 300ZX refuses to fade away.
It's a true testament to the enduring spirit of Japanese performance cars.
Couldn't agree more.
So we've looked at the 300ZX from all these different angles: the history, the design, the tech, the performance, the cultural impact. even its quirks.
It's been quite the journey. We've seen how this car evolved from a stylish sports car into a legend that took on the European giants.
We've uncovered hidden connections, learned surprising facts, and hopefully gained a deeper appreciation for this iconic Japanese machine.
But the story isn't over yet. There's one more piece to explore: the Z32's later years and its lasting impact. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll wrap things up and share our final thoughts on the Nissan 300ZX.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've spent the last two parts exploring the Nissan 300ZX, from its iconic design to its performance on the track, and even its surprising connection to Lamborghini.
It's been quite a journey, but we're not quite done yet. There's still a bit more to uncover. Right. We've talked a lot about the 300ZX's strength, its style, its technology, the performance. But like any car, it wasn't perfect.
Okay, I was wondering about that. What kind of criticisms did the 300ZX face, especially the Z32?
Well, one thing that came up was the steering feel. Some drivers found it a bit lacking in feedback, especially compared to other sports cars at the time.
Interesting. I can see how that would be important for some driving enthusiasts.
Yeah, that direct connection to the road. The Z32, with its emphasis on comfort and refinement, maybe sacrificed a bit of that.
I see.
And speaking of refinement, the Z32's weight was also something that some people pointed out. Even though it was lighter than the Z31, it was still a fairly heavy car, especially in the 2+2 configuration.
Right. More weight usually means less agility. Did that affect its performance much?
To a degree, yeah. It wasn't as nimble as some of its lighter competitors, but it still handled really well for a Grand Tourer. Don't forget, it was designed for those long drives, cruising comfortably at high speeds, and it excelled at that.
That makes sense. Let's be honest, those back seats in the 2+2 weren't exactly spacious.
Yeah, that's the classic trade-off with sports cars, isn't it? You get the style and the performance, but practicality takes a bit of a hit. Those back seats were more for occasional use, small children maybe.
Not exactly a family car.
Right. And another thing some reviewers mentioned was the braking system. While generally good, some felt it could be a bit grabby at times and prone to fade under hard driving.
That's interesting. You'd think with all that power, they'd make sure the brakes were top-notch.
Yeah, you'd think so. But brake technology has evolved a lot since then, and even with those criticisms, it still stopped well enough for most situations.
So overall, the Z32 had its quirks, but they were generally overshadowed by its many strengths.
Exactly. It was a car that offered a unique blend of style, performance, and technology, all at a price that was relatively affordable. And it continues to capture the hearts of car enthusiasts even today. That's what makes it a legend.
Absolutely. Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into the Nissan 300ZX, I want to take a step back and think about the bigger picture. What's the 300ZX's lasting impact? What's its legacy?
Well, I think one of the most important things is that it helped solidify Japan's position as a serious player in the global sports car market. The 300ZX showed everyone that Japanese automakers could build cars that were just as exciting, just as advanced, and just as desirable as anything from Europe or America.
It was a real game changer.
It was, and it inspired so many car enthusiasts, showing them that you didn't need to break the bank to own a stylish and fun car. It was attainable performance.
And it wasn't just about performance. The 300ZX pushed boundaries in design and technology too.
For sure. The digital dash, the four-wheel steering, the aerodynamic design, those were all cutting-edge features for the time. And they still hold up well today.
You can see its influence in modern cars, can't you?
Absolutely. You see echoes of the 300ZX's design in lots of sports cars today, especially those sleek lines and that aggressive stance.
It's a timeless design. So the 300ZX's legacy is one of innovation, performance, and style, and is still inspiring and influencing the car world today.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, folks, that brings our deep dive into the world of the Nissan 300ZX to an end. We've explored its history, its design, the technology, the performance, its impact on culture, and even some of its quirks.
We've covered a lot of ground, but hopefully we've given you a deeper appreciation for this incredible car and its place in automotive history.
And for all you Vintage Car Chronicles listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Be sure to check back tomorrow for another episode. We release new deep dives into automotive history every day, so there's always something new to discover. Until then, keep those engines revving.